Welcome, everyone. Today, we're doing a deep dive on something that can really sneak up on you: hypoglycemia.
It sure can.
It's all about those times when your blood sugar takes a dip, and it can happen whether or not you have diabetes. And what really surprised me?
What's that?
How everyday stuff, like exercise or having a couple of drinks, can actually cause it. It's wild. I never realized how easy it is to end up with low blood sugar.
You're telling me it can be pretty sneaky, but that's exactly why we're here.
Exactly. We want to help you understand what's going on and give you some tools to stay on top of your health. And by the way, I'm so glad to have you here with us. You're amazing at explaining this kind of complex medical stuff.
Well, I try my best to break it down and make it clear for everyone.
You really do. So let's jump right in. Can you start by explaining exactly what hypoglycemia is?
Sure thing. Imagine glucose is like fuel for your body. Just like your car needs gas to run, your body needs glucose. Hypoglycemia happens when your glucose level drops too low. It's like trying to drive across the country on an almost empty tank.
You're going to have a bad time.
You really are. So when your glucose is low, your body basically starts running on fumes.
Okay, that makes sense. But how would you even know if you're running low on fuel, so to speak? What does it actually feel like?
Well, picture this. Sarah is a busy mom with type 1 diabetes. Her morning has been crazy, she didn't have time for breakfast, and by lunchtime she's feeling shaky and sweaty. Ooh, and irritable.
Oh, man. I think we've all been there, even without diabetes, right? That feeling when you're just starving and everything gets on your nerves.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to understand hypoglycemia, because it can happen even if you don't have diabetes. It can happen for all sorts of reasons, like taking too much insulin or those crazy intense workouts that burn through all your energy, more than you can replace right away.
Oh, yeah, workouts can really drain you.
Right. So if you're working out hard and you don't have a snack or a meal to refuel, bam, hypoglycemia might just show up.
So even healthy habits can backfire if you're not paying attention.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on alcohol.
What about alcohol?
A few drinks on an empty stomach can be a recipe for disaster, blood sugar-wise. Alcohol actually stops your liver from releasing stored glucose. So basically, it's like cutting off your backup fuel supply.
Uh-huh. That makes a lot of sense. So we've got missed meals, intense workouts, and alcohol, all potential triggers for low blood sugar.
Yeah, think of them as the triple threat to your glucose levels.
I like that. The triple threat. So is it always about one of these things? Or can low blood sugar be a sign of something else going on with your health?
Well, most of the time it's related to those everyday triggers, like we just talked about. But sometimes it can be a clue that something else might be going on. It's not as common, but it's worth keeping in mind.
So it's always good to know the signs and pay attention to what your body's telling you.
Definitely. Knowing the triggers means you can make better choices.
Absolutely. Being proactive is so important. So we talked about Sarah feeling shaky and sweaty. What are some other signs to watch out for? How do you know if you're having a hypoglycemic episode?
Okay, well, along with the shakes and sweats, you might also feel dizzy or confused. Your heart might race. Your vision could even get blurry. It's not just physical either.
What do you mean?
It can really mess with your mood. You might feel anxious or irritable, like ready to snap at anyone who looks at you funny.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling. It's like a full body experience affecting both your body and your mind.
You got it. And in some serious cases, it can even lead to seizures or passing out. That's why catching those early signs is so important.
Okay, now that's definitely scary. So let's talk about diagnosis. How do doctors actually figure out if someone has hypoglycemia?
There's this neat three-part system doctors use called Whipple's triad.
A three-part system. Okay, tell me more.
It's pretty straightforward. First, you've got the symptoms, like those shaky feelings and mood swings we talked about. Then they'll check your blood sugar level, which needs to be below a certain number, usually less than 70 milli-GDL. And finally, your symptoms should improve once you have some sugar.
That's like solving a three-part puzzle. If all the pieces fit, then it's probably hypoglycemia.
Exactly. It helps them pinpoint whether low blood sugar is the culprit.
Clever. So speaking of sugar, what's the best way to treat hypoglycemia? Like if you're feeling those symptoms, what should you do to get your blood sugar back up safely?
Well, there's this awesome trick called the Rule of 15, and it's super simple.
I love simple solutions. Tell me more.
Okay, so you have 15 grams of fast-acting carbohydrates. That could be glucose tablets, a small glass of juice, or even just a tablespoon of honey. Those carbs are like a shot of energy for your bloodstream. Then you wait 15 minutes and check your blood sugar again.
So it's not about eating a whole meal, it's about quick-acting sugars.
Exactly. If your levels are still low after 15 minutes, just repeat. Keep doing that until your blood sugar is back in a safe range.
That makes sense. So are all sugars created equal in these situations? Are there some that are better than others?
That's a good question. Let's say Emma, who doesn't have diabetes, is feeling weak and shaky after skipping lunch.
Classic Emma.
I know, right? A banana and some orange juice would work wonders for her. Those are full of fast-acting carbs that'll get her blood sugar back up quickly.
Okay, that sounds pretty easy to manage. But what if someone is unconscious or they can't swallow for whatever reason? What do you do then?
That's a serious situation,
Hmm.
and you need to call for help immediately. But for most cases, the ones that aren't super serious, the rule of 15 usually does the trick.
That's reassuring to know. It's great to have those simple, effective tools in your back pocket,
It definitely helps you feel more in control.
for sure. So we've covered the causes, symptoms, how it's diagnosed, and even how to treat it. But what about preventing these episodes in the first place? What can people do to keep their blood sugar stable and avoid those crashes?
Well, it all boils down to smart choices and being in tune with your body. Number one, don't skip meals.
No more skipping breakfast. I'm guilty of that sometimes.
It happens. But yeah, skipping meals is basically sending your blood sugar on a roller coaster ride. Not good.
Got it. What else?
Well, if you have diabetes or you're prone to hypoglycemia, checking your blood sugar regularly is super important. It helps you see any weird fluctuations and adjust your diet or meds as needed.
So you're staying one step ahead.
Exactly. And another thing, before you hit the gym, fuel up with a small meal or a snack. That gives your body what it needs to power through your workout without completely depleting your glucose stores.
No more exercising on an empty stomach then.
Nope. Fuel up first,
Yeah.
and then there's alcohol.
Right. What should people keep in mind about drinking?
Moderation is key, like with most things. Enjoy your drinks, but have them with a meal or some snacks. That'll help keep your blood sugar more stable.
So many good tips. Practical and easy to remember.
That's the goal.
It definitely makes you realize how much control you actually have over your health just by making those little adjustments.
Right. And it's not just about the physical stuff. We have to talk about the emotional side of hypoglycemia, too. It can be stressful, to deal with those crashes, especially if it happens a lot.
I can imagine. It must be really tough to live with that constant fear of your blood sugar dropping suddenly.
It really can be. Think about Lilo, who has reactive hypoglycemia. She's dreading this long meeting because she's worried about having an episode. But she's packed a protein-rich snack and a juice box. That way, she's prepared if her blood sugar starts to dip, and she doesn't have to stress about it as much.
Being prepared definitely helps. But at what point do you think it's crucial to see a doctor? Like, when does hypoglycemia become something you need professional help with?
It's definitely time to talk to your doctor if you're having those episodes often, or they're pretty severe. They can help you figure out what's going on, maybe adjust your meds, and give you some personalized guidance on how to manage it all.
It's about getting that extra support and figuring out what works best for you.
Exactly. And never feel embarrassed about asking for help. It's actually a really powerful step in taking control of your health.
I love that. So before we move on, let's do a quick recap of what we've learned so far. Hypoglycemia is basically when your blood sugar dips too low. It can affect anyone, not just people with diabetes. We've talked about a bunch of things that can cause it, like meds, skipped meals, working out too hard, and alcohol.
And we covered those telltale signs, feeling shaky, sweaty, confused, even grumpy.
Right. And remember, Whipple's triad. That's how doctors diagnose it. And then there's the super handy rule of 15 for treating those low blood sugar episodes.
Plus all those preventative measures. Regular meals, checking your blood sugar, being smart about exercise and drinking.
And of course, seeking medical advice when you need it.
Absolutely. It's all about understanding how hypoglycemia affects you, knowing the signs, and having the tools to manage it effectively.
This is fascinating stuff. There's so much more to hypoglycemia than I ever realized. Before we go any deeper, though, I want to hear from you.
Sure, what's up?
What's the one thing that stood out to you most from our conversation so far?
It's really hit home for me how important a balanced meal is for managing hypoglycemia. It's a simple thing, but it can make a huge difference.
That's so true. It's a good reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. And it shows how much control we have over our health just by making those everyday choices. All right, you ready to keep diving deeper into this?
Absolutely. Let's do it. We've been talking a lot about adults and hypoglycemia, but I was thinking about kids.
Oh, that's a really good point.
It probably looks different for them, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't even thought of that. Is there anything specific that parents should be looking out for? Like, how do you know if your kid has low blood sugar?
Well, first of all, kids, especially kids with diabetes, they're more likely to get hypoglycemia. And the signs might not be as obvious as they are in adults.
So instead of the shakes and the sweats, what should parents be watching for?
Well, sometimes kids will just get really pale, or they might have nightmares, or they could just start acting out more than usual. Those could all be signs of low blood sugar.
Wow, that's good to know. I would never have thought of those things. So it's all about paying attention to any unusual behavior.
Exactly. And the good news is that the rule of 15 that we talked about earlier, it works for kids too. Just like with adults, offering them a quick source of sugar, like some juice or glucose tablets, can really help.
So the treatment is basically the same,
Mhm.
but the warning signs might be a little harder to spot.
Right. And as always, if you're ever in doubt, it's best to check with your doctor, especially when it comes to your kids.
Absolutely. Better safe than sorry. Now, I've got a question that's kind of the opposite of hypoglycemia. Is there a condition where blood sugar levels go too high?
Ah, you're talking about hyperglycemia. It's basically the flip side of what we've been discussing. Hyperglycemia happens when there's too much glucose in the blood.
And that's mainly a problem for people with diabetes, right?
Yeah, for the most part, it's one of the common complications, and if you don't manage it, it can lead to some serious health issues down the line.
Like what? What kind of problems can hyperglycemia cause?
Well, in the short term, you might feel super thirsty, you might have to pee all the time, you might feel tired, you could even get blurry vision. But over time, if your blood sugar is consistently high, it can actually damage your blood vessels and nerves. And that can lead to heart disease, stroke, kidney problems, even vision loss and nerve damage.
Wow, that's serious stuff.
It really is. It just goes to show how important it is to keep those blood sugar levels in check.
For sure. So basically, it's all about balance, right?
Yeah,
Avoiding those extremes of high and low blood sugar.
exactly. You want to find that sweet spot.
Finding that sweet spot. I love that. That's a great way to put it. So for people who want to learn more about both hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia, where should they go? What resources would you recommend?
Well, the American Diabetes Association website is a really good place to start. They have a ton of information on both conditions, from the causes and symptoms to treatments and lifestyle recommendations. And of course, you can always talk to your doctor. They can give you personalized advice.
Those are great suggestions. And I would also add that local support groups can be a huge help. Connecting with other people who are going through the same thing can be really empowering.
I completely agree. Sharing experiences and tips with people who understand what you're going through can make a world of difference.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive into hypoglycemia, what are the key takeaways you hope people will remember?
I think the biggest thing is just being aware.
Yeah.
Recognizing the signs and symptoms, understanding what can cause it, that's the first step to taking action.
It's like having that internal alarm system.
Exactly. And once you have that awareness, you can empower yourself with the knowledge of how to treat and prevent those low blood sugar episodes. The rule of 15, making sure you eat regularly, being smart about exercise and alcohol, those are all incredibly valuable tools.
And of course, remembering to seek medical advice when you need it. There's no shame in that.
Definitely not. Reaching out for help is a sign of strength. It means you're taking your health seriously.
Okay, I want to throw out something that might sound a little strange. What if we tried to look at hypoglycemia in a totally different way?
Okay, I'm intrigued. What are you thinking?
Well, we usually think of hypoglycemia as a problem, right? Something to avoid at all costs.
Hmm.
But what if we saw those moments of low blood sugar, those times when we're feeling shaky and tired, as opportunities?
Opportunities. Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah. What if those moments were actually our body's way of trying to tell us something? Like a gentle nudge to pay attention.
I see what you're saying. So instead of freaking out when our blood sugar drops, we could try to see it as a chance to learn more about ourselves and what our bodies need.
Exactly. Maybe those dips in blood sugar aren't just warnings of a problem. Maybe they're reminders to slow down, eat something nourishing, and just take better care of ourselves.
Yeah, it's like our bodies are saying, hey, maybe it's time to reevaluate some of your choices.
Exactly. And by paying attention to those cues, we might be able to make better choices, not just about food, but about everything. Our sleep, our stress levels, everything.
It's a really interesting way to look at it, and it could lead to a much more balanced and fulfilling life.
It's amazing, right, how something like low blood sugar, which we usually think of as a bad thing, can actually push us to make positive changes.
It really is a whole new way of looking at things. Instead of being afraid of hypoglycemia, we can be curious about it, see it as a chance to learn and grow.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe by paying attention to those signs of hypoglycemia, we can start making better choices for our overall health. It's all connected, right?
Absolutely. It's like those dips in blood sugar are little reminders to take a more holistic approach to our well-being, not just focusing on food and exercise, but thinking about stress, sleep, the whole picture.
The whole picture. That's a great way to put it. Our bodies are pretty complex systems.
They really are. And everything we do, every choice we make, affects that delicate balance, including our blood sugar.
Well, I have to say, I've learned a lot from this deep dive into hypoglycemia. We covered so much, from the science behind it to practical tips for managing and preventing it. And we even explored the emotional side of things.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
I agree. A huge thank you to all of you for joining us on this deep dive into hypoglycemia. I hope you found it helpful and maybe even a little bit empowering.
Remember, knowledge is power. The more you know about how your body works, the better equipped you are to take care of yourself and make choices that support your health and well-being.
Exactly. And if you're looking for more information, don't forget to check out the resources in the show notes. They're packed with helpful tips and advice. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and take good care of yourselves.